I can here, and I want to share a page that I did in my altered book journal. Now, I love using books like this as a art journal, as is kind of a starting place. I know that bothers some of you, and totally understand. So this may not be the video for you, but I love using these because they give me a little bit of a jumping off place. This particular one has this beautiful cover, which is why I was drawn to it. If you take off the dust cover, it's very pretty. I'm leaving that on while I work to kind of protect that, but when I finish the book, then I'll just let it be this pretty color. So I've already started some in here, like this is an example of a spread that I've been working on, and don't know for sure where it's going to go. But today I wanted to do a mermaid page. So I've already cut several potential mermaids in the making, some out of fashion magazines, some different images, and this paper could be fun too. Don't know for sure what I'll use, but that's what I've kind of gathered and stuck in here to add to this page. Now this is a lovely children's book and a very fun illustration, and something you may want to have just on to not alter, but it is perfect for altering because it's got kind of matte pages. They're not slick shiny pages. I like the size of it. There's a lot of interesting things going on the page that I can kind of pick and choose what I want to use. So I'm kind of just picking which of these cutouts will be suitable for the spread. I kind of want to use this real big one as kind of like a focal, like a main mermaid on here. So I'm just kind of doing a little bit of planning of how I think she'll fit in. And I'm adjusting her to be adaptable to mermaid. So doing a little planning here. I'm trimming a foot off here, doing a little trimming so that she's suitable to turn into a mermaid shape. I know that I want to have as much room as possible on the page, so I'm kind of looking at the placement here. She does have the top of her head is cropped, which I could always paint in. I will paint over these, so I don't have to be too worried about them being just so. In fact, sometimes I just use partial bits. But this one I'm just kind of trimming her into a mermaid shape. I'm thinking about that arm coming down, but I really think that where she will be seated, I probably just want to take that off. I think I'm just going to make her coming off the edge of the page like this and trim that whole side off. So I'm just making a crease to mark where I want to cut it, and then I'll trim that off. And I think this one is probably ready to be placed. So now I'm just pulling in all these other little pieces that I cut out. I don't know that I'll use all of them, but I like the idea of just this whole cluster of mermaids, kind of like a mermaid sisterhood or something like that. Been thinking a lot about the idea of community and just kind of wanted something that would give some sort of expression of that. I'm thinking in particular about my patrons, and hopefully this will turn out and be a good Patreon illustration in the month of May. I kind of like the idea of MerMay, but don't really fully participate in that, so this is just kind of my nod that direction. Once I have these in place, I'm using a glue stick here to stick these down. It is a permanent glue stick. I don't always use glue sticks. Sometimes I use a matte gel medium, but as this is just kind of like an easy approach to a art journal page, I'm just kind of keeping things simple. My proportions of these different cutouts are not totally correct. There you saw I just tore her legs and moved them up so that she would fit better on the page and not be quite so long. Now I'm filling in with a pencil. I'm just kind of sketching out some of the things that are missing, like the tail fin on this mermaid. I'm trying to just figure out where I want that to go and just kind of outlining some of the details on the page. Now that I have my collage elements kind of placed and a little bit of an outline or idea at least of what I plan to do, I am pulling out my acrylic paints. I'm using matte acrylics. I have here some flash paint. I have also some paint that I mixed from various brands. And I'm just going in there and kind of painting over, making these collage bits be more what I am wanting to be. So could I paint these on my own? Absolutely. You don't need to use the collage elements, but if they can be a good starting place to just kind of give you a jump start in creating your own fun pieces. I usually go over multiple layers, and these just kind of keep evolving as I work. So with this first layer, I'm really just trying to map out where everything's going to be, because a lot of these collage elements are going to be changing. They're going to be expanded or subtracted. You can see on that first largest image, there's part of the clothing that sticks out further than what I made the actual flesh area be. So I'm just getting these adapted to my own uses at this point. I try to not get in too big of a rush and just let things kind of evolve with time. And there is a lot of ugly stage these go through before I kind of hopefully end up getting things resolved at the end. But the important thing is just to be patient with it. It's easy to be at one of these ugly stages and just say, this isn't working, and give up. But it's important to just kind of hang in there and really give it a chance to become. So now I'm using some of the golden So Flat paint, which is very nice to use, also very expensive. But it was a great shade to kind of match some of the blues that were already there. And my goal with by the time I'm done is for it to be kind of unclear what was original, what's things I added, what's what, and so that it feels more like my own, but with the inspiration of using these collage elements. So this blue I'm using a lot to define the shapes, because it's basically what I'm using in the negative spaces. So I'm kind of I'm redefining where hair goes and where sea life goes, where the foliage goes, and things like that. And so this, I'm just kind of trying to bring everything together here into a cohesive plan. Next, I'm using a green. This is an olive green in the So Flat by Golden. Very, very lovely paint to use. And I'm now, going back and defining where the fins are and kind of the extension of these pieces, turning them into mermaid creatures. Continuing to work on defining those mermaid shapes and spaces. I'm making choices here about what to leave of the foliage, of what to add in, how I want everything to be arranged. I kind of want an intertwined feel with a bunch of sea life wound kind of around and among these mermaids. I'm using a colored pencil now to do some defining. It works very nicely on top of this matte acrylic paint, and so it's a little more visible. I'm doing some shading and defining with this, as well as drawing in some new elements. Now that I've kind of decided where mermaids go versus the plants, I'm going back in with painting some of that flesh. These collage bits were a little bit easier in a way because they were in black and white to start with, so didn't have any predetermined colors. So just kind of doing my own thing with them and kind of deciding where I want them in the background, but I've got to decide how much of them are actually showing from peeking out from behind the uh, seaweed and plant life. Switching to green, I'm finding bodies for these mermaids over here on the left side, and just again trying to kind of tuck them in and among the plants, and deciding what they go in front of, what they go behind. And so it's just always a little bit of a push and pull thing of what's going to be parts that I leave, what's parts that I paint over. Adding some touches to their cheeks with this coral color that it's actually a mix that I made, and just kind of stepping back and reevaluating, taking a pause, looking at it now and then. I'm using a black Posca paint pen to kind of make the hair be more like it's more flowing, like it's underwater. Using that to fill in and redefine some things as well. I decided to change the hairstyle on some of these, so I'm bringing in my orange acrylic by Lucas paints, and I'm using that to kind of add some of this kind of the stereotype, I guess, orange hair that you often see on mermaids. And this really, kind of changes the looks of some of these collage people models. I do want them to end up looking different than what they were in the magazine. So painting over is the key to how I do that. So adding orange paint there up until now, up until I did the cheeks and now the orange, it had been very cool colors. So I'm just getting some of those pops of warm colors included in here too. Now I'm reaching for my Neo Color 2, which is just an easy way to bring color in that can be, it's water soluble, so I can activate it and brush it out. At this point, I know that I will still be working more on top here, so I'm kind of keeping that in mind, that these are indeed water soluble, will activate, and I will be, kind of brushing them out to blend with the paint of future layers. This is actually the next morning, and you can see my light has totally changed, so forgive the poor lighting here. But I'm taking a pencil and just adding more elements. I decided I really want some fish swimming across in front of this mermaid, so I'm getting some of that sketched in with a pencil. The reason I love matte acrylic paint is for this very reason. I can use a pencil on top. You just saw me erasing the pencil on top. You can just add those layers without any problem if you use matte acrylic paint, whereas the more glossy paints, acrylic paints, are much harder to layer on top of and to work on top of. I'm adding some more seaweed, plant life in here, trying to kind of in keeping with what I already have here. So kind of trying to keep some of the same styles and types of plants consistent and go from there. I am making the decision at this point that maybe those guitars that were part of the original page in the children's book, I decide that those need to go. I'm not going to have those there. I want this to be a little bit more my work and not such strong elements from the previous page in there. So I just decided that I'm going to paint those out. Again, that's a wonderful thing about mixed media. You just keep working in layers and layers and layers. You paint some things out, you paint some things in, and you just keep on layering. Continuing on with some flash white paint here, I'm kind of establishing those fish that I sketched in, getting those in place, and touching up some other areas that need some white. And then here I am with that light blue, painting out the guitar, leaving the areas that I will make be mermaid. So again, with painting negative spaces, it's all about figuring out what isn't something else. I'm also painting in some more foliage here of these blue leaves, and coming in front of that biggest mermaid, and just giving it a more layered and feeling of depth. I'm also noticing that I'm kind of losing some of the contrast and values. I'm losing some of those dark areas as I paint over with this light blue, which I do really like the light blue, but I am bringing in some darker blue to kind of contribute to a feeling of depth here and contrast and values, and work a little bit of that in while still kind of maintaining the feel that I've been headed towards. I'm going to add some music as I continue to work here, and I will be back with you later. Going back in with more flesh tones to get everything just defined. I've got where I took the guitar out. I need to paint in an arm there. I need to finish painting in the flesh on these two mermaids over to the left side. And now that I have kind of more figured out where the mermaids go and where the plants go. I can get those filled in a little bit more. Just keep going back and forth, adjusting colors, adding paint. While one area is drying, I can be working on something else, and I just kind of keep working back and forth. I'm using a colored pencil here to kind of deepen these areas, add some more detail, do some more kind of fine lines for the negative spaces that are a little hard for me to get with my paintbrush, especially since the paintbrushes I'm using are not very good ones. I don't have a good detail brush here, so I'm using colored pencil kind of as I would do that. Just like the look it's giving, just sharpening things up and adding more contrast. I really like using acrylic paint markers. This particular one is a Posca in black, and I'm just using it to add some extra dark depth to those areas that I just used colored pencil, but this just deepens some of the areas even further. I like this process of building up layers rather than try to just accomplish everything in one go. I think it just adds some richness and some variation instead of everything being this black paint pen or all the teal colored pencil I was using. You get some variety here, and I think that just really adds a lot. You don't necessarily notice it, but it adds a lot to the piece. Just use my finger here to kind of smudge it so I don't leave a sharp line. I want it to have a more blended look, so I'm just using my finger to smudge that paint while it's still wet. I'm using a white paint pen, this time a Sharpie water-based white paint pen, to go over some of these little white sea life things, and I already kind of sketched them in, but I'm sharpening them up now with this white pen. Now I've found myself a tiny little paintbrush, and I'm using some black to add some details in here and there, like some speckles on these fish. I love doing fish, and I love speckled. I don't know my kinds of fish. These I kind of made to generally match the fish that were already on the page, but added these little speckles in there, and I'm just going in here and there and kind of adding little bits of detail. And then doing the same thing with that light blue color, adding little plants and richness to it. Also going back over that background, getting a little bit more cohesive look. Just using my fingers to blend that in a little bit with what's already there. And now I'm using a neon pink Prismacolor pencil just to add a little pop of color to those jellyfish. And then in addition, I'm using the white paint pen again to just add some detail to them. I especially had fun with the squiggly little legs. I'm also using the white paint pen to add in more of these little droplets pattern to continue out the pattern on the page. I think the attention to these final little details are kind of what makes a page. So even just things that seem kind of insignificant, I think are just kind of worth carrying it out to completion. So here's a bit of a closer look at my page. I think I'm calling it done for now. And there's lots of fun little detail in there that has just kind of evolved and grown. I started with a basic plan of just a group of mermaids, and this is what it's evolved into. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.